Hello, beautiful mamas. You probably want to know all these different ways to decrease and alleviate the reflux while you're trying to figure out what's going on and what is causing reflux with your little one, which is the video that I have up here that I did 5 different things that may potentially cause reflux into your baby. Now, while you're figuring that out, here are different ways to help alleviate the reflux. I'm Adriana. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist of 13 years. I've worked in the NICU and I've worked with overall infants. Number one thing that I really want is to empower you to demystify milestones, to understand feeding in order for you to set up that foundation for your little one for their overall future. All right, here are 5 different ways to decrease these symptoms of reflux. Number 1 is to hold your baby upright for 15 to 20 minutes. A lot of families always ask me, well, why in the world do we have to lift up the baby and place them in this upright position? Well, I've had multiple babies that we need to hold in that particular position because it helps with the rest and digest. And when you're holding them in this upright position and you're just maintaining this position, or making sure that if you're holding them in the upright position, you're not holding them like this, right? You're not bringing these legs up to the chest. You're extending these legs out, giving them the opportunity to create this space here and lifting them in this upright position with obviously pillows underneath, because 15 to 20 minutes, I tell you, it does tire you out, trust me, especially if your baby is heavy. But other than that, this really does help the baby alleviate these type of symptoms. Another thing too, when it comes to carrying a baby, maintain and placing them more so on their left side. So I love to hold them in this upright position and holding them a little bit more on this left side because of the structure of the stomach. It helps decrease the reflux because the way that the stomach and the anatomy of the stomach is, and the left side lying position really does help. Number 2 is really attempting to decrease container usage. And while you're holding them within the 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, and if you end up holding them for that particular period of time, then go ahead and place them in the container in order for you to do what you need to do. Check out also my video in terms of 6 different things that new moms, or mistakes that new moms make. That way I also talk a little bit about containers. But I feel that it's very important not to place them in the car seat, in a swing, or in a baby bouncer, because it brings up the legs towards the chest and you're compressing the baby and placing a lot of pressure here in this area. So try to avoid that if you can. If you're on a road trip, then so be it. It's totally understandable. Safety is first when it comes to placing the baby in the car seat. Number 3 is frequent burping, especially when you're bottle feeding or when you're breastfeeding and you know that the baby is either dribbling milk off to the sides, or you're noticing that they're intaking a lot of air. Even if you notice that your baby was crying, hysterically prior to feeding, you end up bottle feeding them. So make sure that between the feed, that you're giving them the opportunity to burp, rather than having them continuously feed the entire feeding and making sure that you are burping in between. Another thing too is making sure that they're not eating the entire volume all at the same time within 10 to 15 minutes and they're chugging that bottle down. That is having the baby feed so quickly. It causes the baby to feel really uncomfortable, and all this volume is being placed in the stomach so quickly that it doesn't give the body the ability to register how much volume they have in their belly, and they end up wanting to spit up. And sometimes this can also lead to overfeeding. So that is definitely something to consider when you're bottle feeding your baby. Number 4 is pacifier. The pacifier really does help, especially after bottle feeding or breastfeeding. And if you've noticed that your baby is feeling very uncomfortable, they have the hiccups and they're wanting to spit up or burp and you could just totally tell, then go ahead and offer them the pacifier, and this will help them alleviate the feeling of wanting to spit up and then having them swallow whatever they have in their mouth, especially if they're silently refluxing as well too. Tip number 5, to decrease the symptoms, especially when they're bottle feeding and you're noticing that they are having a really difficult time dribbling off to the sides of the mouth, they're pulling off, and you feel like the nipple might be a little too fast, check out this video up above. Please try to decrease the flow. That's definitely one thing that you could attempt to do. Once you go to a slower flow nipple, maybe the baby will not feel so uncomfortable and not chug a big amount of volume up to the point where they're not only intaking air but also feeding very quickly, as I've mentioned before. And then the other thing that you can do as well, other than just decreasing the flow rate or changing the nipple to a slower flow, is also placing the baby in the sideline position in order to even slow it down even further. And while you're lifting up the baby in a sideline position, while you're crossing your leg, making sure that you're not bringing the legs in and you're placing the baby this way, or when you're bottle feeding the baby, you're not bottle feeding and tucking in those legs. Making sure that when you're bottle feeding with legs stretched completely open. And if you do decide to try the sideline position, making sure that you're lifting up that leg in that sideline position. The nose is aligned to the belly button, the shoulders are up to the ceiling, and you're stretching the baby out. So these are different things that you can do, different tips that you can do while bottle feeding to decrease those refluxy symptoms of your baby. I hope these 5 different tips really help you overall with decreasing the reflux symptoms of your baby. Again, talk to your pediatrician. Reflux overall is something that is not fun for babies, and babies deserve the right to feel good in their bodies, and it's very important to really get to the bottom of why a baby has overall reflux. So talk to your pediatrician and see what you guys are able to come up with or trial during this difficult time.